Alright. I bet you guys have been looking forward to this one. It has been like a year and a half or something. I don't know, maybe only like 5 months. Who knows? Anyway, not the point. Today, as you can see by the title, the thumbnail, and the image you are currently staring dead at, here, my friends, is What If Deku Was Stan's Son, Part 5. I will warn you, this is not one story for the faint of heart. You probably had to click on a thing that asks if you... This video is for mature audiences. Because some fuck shit will happen, my friends. Anyway. This, if you guys don't remember, I'll give you a short cap of what's happened, or what happened last time. If you want to know the whole story, go back and watch it. Who knows? Alright. What happened last episode is Izuku, I'm gonna skip past the non-important stuff, found his way to the summer camp saga, I guess. And the reason he went is he heard there was an attack going on over there. So he went there to try to stop it. Because yes, he was kicked from the school, but he still had friends there. He didn't want to turn his back on them. And him having this knowledge, of course, went there. First encountering Dobby, who he gravely injured, and then moved on, seeing Spinner, who said, yeah, that he's one of, like, Stain's admirers. And, by the way, I don't think I mentioned this, like, at all. Unless I did do an episode on the Hosu arc. Probably did. Yeah, I did. Whatever. Stain is known in this world, and it's not for just the hero killer. He's also known for different deeds that he has done. Some good, some bad. So people do know him. That's why he still has admirers, even though he didn't have that whole speech at Hosu, and his ribs weren't broken or anything. Yeah. So, now, he fought Dobby and found out a new ability of his quirk, which is he can basically he can drink someone's blood and sort of edit their quirk to him. He can never steal someone's quirk perfectly, because that is theirs, and there's some sort of weird thing going on there. But if he edits it, or if he edits the quirk enough, it can be his. So he gains basically a rip-off quirk of that person. He stole, or not stole, but copied Dobby's quirk in a way, and it's a lot less hot, yes, but it's also not blue, that sort of thing. Then he fought Muscular. Muscular ended up injuring Toga. Bad idea. Through a surprisingly short and a lot different from the anime fight, he kills Muscular and drinks his blood, taking his quirk, editing it so it's not as strong. He can't summon strings around his arm to gain immense strength, but what he can do is he doubles the amount of strings already in his arm, so it grows a bit. Right? That's still strong as hell, but it's not to the point it was. After that, he took Toga home to meet with his father, and declared to his father they would, indeed, kill the rest of the League of Villains. At no matter what cost, he would end them. His father agreed. And at the very end of that nice little wrap-up I did for you guys, is the moment before they leave to go try and find info on where that base is. They know they have one, they just don't know where it is. Stain is currently on the roof, getting dressed with his vigilante gear, I guess, as Izuku walks over to the sort of paralyzed and currently asleep Toga, as he very kindly and softly kisses her on the forehead and says, "We'll be back soon, don't go anywhere," as just like the grief of the situation makes him think of irony a bit. As he stands up, wipes one of his eyes suspiciously, and walks outside of the door, waiting for his father to get down from the roof. In a very staying way, he just sort of hops down, stabs his sword to the side as he falls. The sword digs into the building, but he gets down. Ready? He says to Stan. Stan says, ready whenever you are. Izuku chuckles as they just blur and are suddenly moving. They run around the city a bit, hopping up and down, eventually finding their way to Hoso. At this point, they had only found a few thugs, and they weren't associated with the League of Villains, sadly. So they keep running around. When in an alley, in a dumpster, badly beaten and sort of decayed almost, which is terrifying, he sees a familiar reptile. As Spinner is laying in the dumpster, beaten, bloody, and the right side, or his right hand scales are sort of just falling off. Izuku says, "Oh, shit! Wait here, Dad." And he runs into the alleyway as he grabs a hold of this. And when I say beaten and bruised, I mean like 8% of his teeth are out. So, like, more. Sorry, my computer's being weird. He drags Spinner out of the dumpster and quickly starts checking on him. He has a pulse and he is indeed awake as he says, "Hey, it's Stain, son. Never thought I'd see you again." Stain walks into the alleyway to see what's going on and sees Spinner's familiar outfit, one could say. Now I will give an actual description of him for any of those who are here just because they like hearing my voice and haven't watched the anime. I'm assuming very few. He is in a very Stain-like outfit, so the one you see on Izuku, but he has a mutation where he looks a lot like a lizard. Same sharp teeth. He has the bandages around his eyes, and above the bandages is a small knight-like mask. And then, sprouting from the top of his head is a sprout of pinkish purple hair. That is the basic description. He looks up at Stain with amazement and says, "Never thought I'd see that either." Izuku and Stain chuckle as Izuku quickly just draws out one of his many knives on person and cuts a small slash into Spinner's, I guess, scales? But we'll just say arm, as he then bites his thumb and lets a few drops drip into Spinner's bloodstream, as he then tells them, "Heal him a bit, do all you can, but there is so few that it's not going to be much. It's enough to make him stop bleeding, his wounds clot," which is impressive on its own. Also, his right eye, which was swollen and black, starts to mellow out a bit. Great. His right hand's scales are starting to grow back, but like I said, it's not going to do a lot. It'll take a while for them to grow back. Feeling slightly more energized than he was the second before, Spinner gets up onto his knees and does a very respectful and graceful bow to Stain and Stain's spawn, as he thinks. "Nice to see you again, whatever your name is, and you, Stain, the person I idolize." Staying slightly confused, someone idolizes him, says, wait, aren't you part of the League of Villains? Spinner nods and then shakes his head, says, I was. And how did that change? I don't like doing his voice, so we're just going to monologue it a bit. What he details to them is somehow Shigaraki, Tomura, found out about how Stinger talked with Izuku and then walked away to go help Dabi instead of fighting him. And that's why Muscular is dead. So, Shigaraki, being the man-child he is, beat the shit out of Spinner, there we go, in the case, using his quirk on Spinner's arm. Izuku says, ouch, but great. So now that you're no longer attached to them, do you know where their hideout is? Spinner nods his head and gives them the coordinates and which building to look at and how it's on the bottom floor in a bar. But that's all he knows. Izuku will nod and say, you've been a great help. Father, do you want to bring him to the warehouse? Stan looks at Izuku with like a questionable eye and almost disdain, almost, as he says, you think I'm gonna let you attack the League of Villains on your own? Izuku says, no, I know you will. This is my vendetta. Suddenly, his cheek stings as Stain, for the politest of terms, punches him in the face. And that proves it. You're my son. Stupid, cocky, and big-headed. If you die, I'm gonna kill you again. As Stain chuckles and picks up the wounded Spinner and starts dashing home. Izuku sighs as he rubs his cheek. Ow. Then suddenly his eyes glow red. His other eye, of course, the one that isn't red, sheems the same color. As he just sort of sees... the best I can describe is he sees everyone in the nearby area. As in, like, through walls and everything. He sees their blood highlighted. As he thinks, my ability is growing, it seems. Then starts running, going to the coordinates that Spinner told him. On the way, planning the quick brawl. And eventually, he gets to the building. And instead of rushing downstairs, he thinks, I need a little more time to plan. So he opens the door that is locked. So he grows his arm a bit as he just snaps the lock and walks through. Suddenly, on the other side in this building, it is obviously abandoned. Nothing is happening upstairs. He sighs as he sits down in an old, decrepit chair that's barely standing, and thinks for a good 5 or 6 minutes, when he hears the door from downstairs opening and closing, and voices going out, talking for a second. By a second, I mean like a few minutes, and then them walking back in and closing the door. Someone was having a cigarette break. That tells him that most likely they're there, and that's good. His plan is made. He is ready. As he gathers all of the anger and rage and just all of his emotions into a ball, he centers that ball in his right hand as he starts flowing the blood all through him. And he activates what he calls muscularity, where his right arm's muscle strands double within his arm, so his skin grows with them. As he crouches on the ground, brings his massive hand up and then swings it on the ground with a deafening boom. The ground, or, well, now the floor and ceiling, buckle as he falls into the bar area. The piece of rubble he's standing on lands on a TV as we hear it crunch. Uh-oh, some of them think. He looks up with two beady red glowing eyes as he says, "Which one of you is Shigaraki?" And he glances around the room, seeing everyone that he had fought previously, including Magma and Dobby. He doesn't know Twice, Moonfish, or one of the Nomu that is standing there scarily, I don't know, terrifyingly, standing there, just halted. He also sees a chair with a bunch of different restraints on it, probably for holding one of the students. He says, "I haven't gotten an answer yet. I'll give you another 5 seconds." As everyone in the room just, they don't actually see this, but in their head, they just see this red and black aura radiating off of him as they all are, like, pushed back a bit. Deciding to be helpful in the situation, Twice points towards Shigaraki, the dude with the gloves or the hands on him. And you all are saying, wait, yeah, he got away, didn't he? You all are saying, everyone else in the room being dumbfounded at Twice's action, when suddenly Twice doesn't point at Shigaraki, suddenly points his finger at himself. Zuko remembers the fight at the USJ, so he knows which one is Shigaraki. But he looks at Twice anyway, deciding to instill some fear, as he stands up, drawing his tungsten carbide blades, katana in his right hand, and K-bar knife in his left as he's walking forward. Just cracks his neck as he says, "So, are you the one that ordered Muscular to kill anyone in his sight?" Him saying this to Twice when Shigaraki suddenly lunges forward, trying to, disintegrate Deku. But Deku uses the quirk he got from, I think, the second, if not third, episode of this series, Adrenaline Surge, as everything slows, molasses slow. He takes a step back as he hits Shigaraki with the palm or the handle of his blade just directly in the back of the neck, which knocks him out as he falls over the table and lands roughly on his shoulder. Azuku says, "Now that the boss is down and out, what do you..." He takes a quick head count, which let me do the same. What do you 4 or 5 think about? As he looks at Dobby, Twice, Magni, I think, Mr. Compress, and the Moonfish just standing there. He doesn't include the Nomu, as it probably has no brain. None of them are, like, shaking or quaking. Twice seems not on his best, but aside from that, he seems pretty much okay. Mustard was arrested, so he's not there, of course. Dobby, being the furthest away, decides, "Fuck everyone else, I'm getting out of here," as he quickly runs for the door. Not quick enough, however, as Zuko just sort of moves. Twice in his way, but not for long, as Twice is thrown against the wall, as Zuko is suddenly standing in front of the door looking at Dobby with blood blood-coated eyes, not even bloodshot, blood-coated eyes. And he says, "Not so fast. You guys didn't answer my question. Why? Why did you join the League of Villains? And further yet, why did you hurt Toga?" As he rounds this out through his teeth, they give their reasonings for joining the League of Villains, which I personally don't know. But they just ramble on, so it's barely heard anyway. When Izuku says, "Enough of this. This is a chore. I'm not supposed to take too much fun. Or I'm not supposed to have too much fun with this." As he walks forward towards Dobby. Dobby, doing a last resort, holds up both of his hands as fire spurts forth, and he's not holding back, so his own flesh gets burned a bit as he's doing this. Now, Izuku, if you guys do remember from the USJ episode, Izuku stole all the quirks from the Nomu, not just the regeneration, but that's the most important, as the shock absorption stopped him from being blown backwards, and his generation is healing him faster than he can be damaged. Yeah. As the fire ends, he is now about a foot away from Dobby, and this startles him, of course, as he tries to jump back, but Deku just slices. One quick swipe of his blade as Dobby's head rolls to the ground. "Next," he says as he turns around, looking directly towards Kirigiri, who is teleporting him and Shigaraki out. Izuku says, "Not so far," as suddenly Kirigiri stops, as I'm actually not sure if this is a thing, but to my common knowledge right now, Kirigiri has a core. Just the chest and legs of a person, I think, right? He's a Nomu, I think. Yeah, we'll just say that he has a body for now. Everything stops flowing. As his heart stops getting blood, so does he as he falls over, the portal disappearing. Magni decides no longer to wait as she rushes forward, flying, I guess, using her magnet to go right towards him. Izuku, instead of doing any fancy dodges, just stands there as he holds his ground, pointing his tungsten blade towards the incoming foe. He says, "I wouldn't recommend that." And as soon as the magnet touches the very tip of the blade, it bursts into fire as the blade has been heating up for a while using the quirk he got from Dobby. As they see his left arm, the one holding the K-bar, start to grow, he grabs Magni by the throat as his shattered magnet lays on the ground. Izuku says, Why did you do it?" And he stabs forth, gutting him in one swift blow, throws him, sorry guys, sorry, throws her behind him, crushing her into a wall. Yeah, I keep making that mistake. Sorry, I say him for everyone. I have said him for Uraraka in the past. If you haven't seen that episode, then you haven't, but if you do, you remember. Anyway. Next is Twice, who makes a clone of himself, who makes a clone of himself, who makes a clone of himself, as they all, like four almost, run at Izuku. Izuku says, "Pathetic. I don't like open manslaughter, but you deserve it." As he slices one's head directly off of his body, another in half, and the last one is like fucking quivering as Izuku just says, "Think you'll suffer more if I let you live," and just kicks him in the jaw, knocking him out. Then he looks Sadly, at the Nomu, who hadn't received an order, so it's standing there. Moonfish is currently restrained because, he's Moonfish. If those of you who don't know who Moonfish is, he is the weird teeth dude in the black, like, crazy suit. I forgot what they call it. He's wriggling about trying to send his teeth towards Izuku, but every time his teeth shoot out, they retract for some reason. No one can figure out why. Izuku chuckles. Izuku walks forward, facing Mr. Compress, who immediately tries to, you guessed it, compress him. Izuku takes a step to the right, steps forward, which is behind Mr. Compress, stabs him with a K-bar in the arm, and then licks up the blood. Now. He decides not to use all of his overpowered abilities, and only his overpowered ability from birth. He freezes Mr. Compress solid. This one is for quite a while, if not permanent, because he didn't just do it without licking his blood. So as Mr. Compress stretches and tries to get free, he walks up to the two last surviving, that we'll call them, League of Villain members, Shigaraki and Kirigiri. Kirigiri disappears just out of nowhere, as so doesn't Shigaraki, or he's about to before his head gets chopped off. Just a swift movement. Izuku was really sad he didn't get to experience the pain needed, but he doesn't want to let him go. But his head, anyway, and Kirigiri disappear when they spit up black goo. Izuku thinks, another teleporter? How many shifters do they have in this goddamn League of Villains? And by this time, the heroes would be showing up to the League of Villains space, which... No, they don't know where it is. They wouldn't know because they don't have Bakugo on the tracker shit. Anyway, they won't be doing anything as Izuku steps out calmly and leaves this area, waiting in the street because he knows whoever teleported them out is probably going to be visiting here in a second. As soon as he sees Shigaraki's head just come back solely, All For One thinks, who the fuck could do this, let alone who the fuck would do this, as he rushes over to the other base faster than light, basically, because that's the standard of All Might and All For One, because they're fucking destructively overpowered. He's just suddenly standing in front of the building, as Izuku is currently just wiping the blood off of his swords as he looks up and says, "Oh, are you the boss? Thought it was Shigaraki." All For One says, "Shigaraki was the boss of the League of Villains. I'm just a mere assistant. Well, now I guess it's my duty to kill you. Killing my protege like that." As he steps forward, his right arm grows past the normal limits like he did in the anime, and Izuku says, maybe not. As, instead of taking the, hit full on, he holds his not titanium, fucking tungsten carbide blades in front of him in a cross pattern so that it would take the blow. As he's punched backwards. They do sustain the punch, although there's a small, insignificant crack. Scary. That is tungsten carbide. Very scary, one would say. Nonetheless, Izuku doesn't flutter? Stutter? No, Izuku doesn't cower away. I don't know. He immediately jumps up, flipping in the air so he can have his legs facing towards the building, propelling himself behind All For One, standing up, and then getting punched in the stomach by All For One, who was already looking that way. As Izuku gets punched with this massive blow, his ribs, only one of his ribs, cracks as it heals immediately. Shock absorption is a bitch. As he's punched backwards, he breaks through the first wall of a building and almost through the second wall. As he coughs up blood and some dust, he says, "Ow," and stands up as he looks towards All For One. Now, if I'm not wrong, the quirks that the first Nomu had were, you know, the healing quirk, or, regeneration quirk, shock absorption, and massive strength and speed boosts, which were and did par with All Might, which, if you somehow remember the show, All Might beat All For One. So as All For One's about to rush forward, Izuku's behind him now. Just like that, he's behind him. And you're thinking, what the fuck, that's not real, that has to be fake. He already was faster and stronger than most heroes already. When he drank the blood of, you know, the Nomu and got all of its abilities and they stayed, then to have Muscular's ability, yeah, no, he is just fucking. I think he might be the most overpowered one I've made yet, aside from Sound Quirk, because obvious reasons. So as Izuku is behind All For One, he says, "Man, you are bad at this whole thing for being the secret villain boss." As he kicks All For One in the spine with a bone snapping sound. All For One is thrown into the same wall Izuku was, as he goes all the way through it as well. Izuku walks forward as All For One's quirks are starting to knit his flesh back together. And it's a lot faster than Izuku's, I will say, because, you know, there's multiple going into it. Izuku says, "Oh yeah, isn't your quirk the..." Wait, he wouldn't know that. Never mind. "What is your quirk? You have strength, regeneration, massive speed. Did some sort of air bullets there. I better get a taste for myself," as he just slams his blade down, re-separating his spine so he still can't stand up. Pulls out the blade, drinking not only his blood, but his spinal fluid, which is even more quirk-based DNA in it, as his brain gets overloaded with so many quirks it hurts, as suddenly he has them all. Yep. Yes. I did it. Who fucking knew I would ever do this? I don't know, maybe 80% of you. Getting back to the serious topic of unbeatable Izuku. He sees everything. This is the strongest burst so far, as his body gets a lot faster than it already was. He is now breaking sound barriers by moving. As he steps forward, he grabs the back of All For One's neck as he lifts him into the air and says, "What a beautiful night, isn't it? Look at the stars, the glimmering moon. A brilliant night to spill your blood on the streets, huh?" As All For One is struggling and fighting back, Izuku's using every same quirk he's using, but edited. Not downgraded this time, which is odd. but upgraded. Izuku says, "It's time to finish this. I'm done." As he slices All for One's throat, dropping his body to the ground. He sighs as he sheds a tear, unknowing why, as his soul gets just a little more fouled. He exhausted from even just such a short fight. Exhausted. And I'm going to have so many comments outraged with what I just did, saying that All Might couldn't beat him at, quarter strength. That's about normal. And yes, All Might fought him at his peak, but he thought he killed him. And at least, he gravely injured him. And this character, Izuku, currently had All Might's strength from the Nomu, and just a little more from Muscular. As long as his, adrenaline surge, which doubled his speed already, and never-ending flow, which is a better adrenaline surge. This motherfucker was breaking the sound barrier. So, no outrage comments on why that wasn't realistic and how fast I killed him. Okay, sorry. This quirk was broken. I think I did say that at the beginning. I don't know. Now, to wrap this up, because I know we all want to go to sleep, or at least I do, and it's currently 3 a.m. for me. Izuku walks home, tired, just wanting to sleep. And on the way, he realizes that the quirk he holds, All for One, is better left forgotten. As he holds his hand into the air, and everyone in the city sees a beam of red light shooting into the sky, as he says, "Be left behind, you evil, evil, horrible quirk." As the red beam fades into particles, a lot of people, everyone in the city who didn't have a quirk, suddenly gets a quirk. And Izuku made sure the ones he released were at least good, on par, and were hard to make wrong with. He set limitations to them, where each time you were going to use them on an innocent person, it deals like mental damage to the person doing it. So people could be true heroes. As the quirks he didn't let go, say the more ruthful and horrible ones, he just deletes from his DNA. He says, "It's finally time to live the high school life." And he walks to his bunker almost now, as he says, "Dad?" His dad / Stain, or Chimiziri, or whatever, standing in the very back of the warehouse with Spinner. Toga is now limping there, and Yuki, the little girl, the wonderful little sister of Toga, is just hugging her big sister. He says, "Yeah, I did it," as he falls to one knee, as everyone sees that he's covered in a lot of blood, and a decent amount of it is his. His skin was burnt off and healed in a matter of milliseconds, so that would drain some blood. As he says, "I'm gonna go to sleep." And he falls over, suddenly and hurriedly unconscious. He wakes the next morning, laying in bed next to his loved one, with, in between them, the girl he now sees as a little sister, his hand just automatically resting on her head, patting it for security. his father outside teaching Spinner some things, and he smiles. Happy. Now, I plan for this to be the end, but if you guys want to see some aftermath of what happened in this series, leave likes, comments, do as well as subscribe, tell me what you think will happen, and who knows, I might write it in. I do expect to make a story on Izuku and Toka's kid, which will be entirely different from the actual show, because the reason I stopped recording for a while is bursts of depression hit me left and right, and one of those was just a major drain of creativity for this show. I wanted to make some of my own content and not just sort of change and repeat the stuff that's already here. There will still be the lovable characters from the show, so you guys who come here just to see different versions of the anime while we wait for the next seasons of the anime, next volumes of the manga, you'll still see those characters, but a large part of it will be mine. And I will always give credit to fucking My Hero, because it is one of the best animes I think I've ever watched. But yeah, so I will be doing other what ifs. It's just I really wanted to start that because I've tried to start an audiobook on this before, but it was not successful whatsoever. And I do understand it was sloppy. I shouldn't have written so little. I should have written in detail descriptions of everything, but I sort of just went over it because I was so excited. And I've grown from that, and I have learned patience is probably one of the greatest virtues that you can have, and I'm starting to gain a lot of them. So, if you guys made it to the end of this video, I thank you. You are truly part of the Cursed Army, and I hope you attend my next video, and I hope to see you there. Hex out.